It's my birthday today, and I had been planning to climb one of my favourite mountains in the area and spend the night up there. But for obvious reasons, that's not happening. And I'm learning, like many other people, that I'm not fully in control of events to the extent that I would like to be. But let me tell you about one of the times I did climb this mountain. It was 3 years ago, January 2017, and along with two friends, we made the 4-hour hike up La Maroma, which is a 2,000-metre peak, about an hour and a half's drive from here. It was a beautiful sunny afternoon, and we sat on top of the mountain watching the sun set in the west. It was incredibly clear skies. We could see the Rock of Gibraltar 200 kilometres away as the crow flies, and across the Mediterranean we could dimly see the mountains, the Atlas Mountains. And as we looked at these spectacular views, we talked about 2016 and the year that had gone past. We kind of brought closure to the old year, and we prayed for each other. And we decided that in the morning when we woke up, we would talk about the year to come and our plans and our dreams, and we would pray for each other in the morning. And it was a lovely evening. I remember it had been quite a difficult year. I was going through a relational conflict at the time. I was in the middle of a very challenging crisis in our region, which is actually still going on. And I was feeling exhausted. And I talked about these things, and they prayed with me. And as I looked back over this past year, somehow I got a sense of perspective. They made a little bit more sense as I looked back. We slept up there on the mountain. It was a very cold night. There was still snow on top of the mountain, but it was fantastic sleeping there in my bivy bag and my thick down bag. And when we woke in the morning, we found to our surprise that heavy cloud had settled over the mountaintop. Whereas the night before the visibility was incredible, in the morning I could probably only see 20 or 30 metres. We sat there in the same spot where we'd sat the night before, and we talked about the year to come. We talked about our dreams. We talked about the unknowns of the future. And there seemed something remarkably prophetic about the fact that as we talked about the future, our visibility was literally virtually zero. Somehow when I look back on the past, I get a good perspective. It makes sense when I look backwards. But when I look forwards, I don't know. I don't know what the future holds. I have no control over the future. And as we talked and prayed for each other, I was reminded of the verse in Joshua where Joshua and the Israelites are just about to cross the River Jordan into the Promised Land. And they're told to follow closely after the ark. And they're told, you haven't been this way before. And that phrase was just ringing in my mind as we made our way down the mountain. You haven't been this way before. It was quite unnerving, actually, to be walking down through thick cloud, stumbling on the slippery, damp rock, and thinking, I haven't been this way before. I was also thinking about Moses in Exodus, when God promises him, my presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. The Ark of the Covenant is a symbol of God's presence. The children of Israel were told to follow closely after the ark. God promised Moses his presence would go with him and he would give him rest. Somehow the presence of God is closely tied into rest. I've been thinking a lot about this at the moment. In fact, I would say that probably my main Ebenezer stone, the main memorial stone for me, the main lesson that I've been learning over these last 18 months is about rest. I've been going through a long crisis situation where I'm out of control. I've been learning what does it mean in the midst of a very difficult crisis to rest? What do I do when I'm in WhatsApp groups that my phone is buzzing in the middle of the night, when I'm constantly being called to meetings, when constantly I'm feeling out of control? How do I rest? And I've been learning about the Sabbath. It feels actually at the moment like all of us are in an enforced Sabbath. This isn't to romanticize it. This is difficult times for people. But there's something about the Sabbath which is an invitation. It's an invitation to step into a story of our humanity and of the future of our humanity. We're told in Genesis that God created on 6 days, and then on the 7th day he ceased from his work. He Shabbated from his work. Cease is Shabbat, Sabbath. He stopped work. And then he stepped into the creation that he'd created, and he dwelt with humanity. He ruled with them. He dwelt, his presence dwelt on earth with humanity. And the seventh day is somehow a picture of rest and presence. It's a picture of God dwelling with people. Now, in this last year, I've been listening to some wonderful audio podcasts by the Bible Project. If you've never listened to them, I highly recommend them. And there's been a series on 7 and the repetition of this picture of 7 and Sabbath and rest. And I've been learning a lot. I've been approaching my 50th year. In fact, it's today. and 50 is a Jubilee. It's a significant moment in the biblical picture. It's a picture of rest. And the Sabbath is all about stopping. When the Israelites had been rescued out of Egypt and they were in the wilderness, God told them that he would feed them. He gave them manna. He told them that every day they were to collect the manna. But on the 6th day, they would collect double amount. And on the 7th day, they should rest from their labour. But they would have enough food from the 6th day to last them on the 7th day. Somehow, there had to be an act of trust involved. On the 6th day, they had to collect, trusting that the food they collected would be enough for the 7th day without them working for it. And so the act of rest, the act of Sabbath was actually a declaration, I trust in the Lord. I trust that the Lord is my provider. It's also a statement of humility. I cannot do enough on my own. I cannot provide everything that I need. I cannot, in all of my days, provide. Even if I worked 7 days a week, every day of the year, I cannot achieve what I need to. I can't provide. And so therefore, I will deliberately inconvenience myself. I will allow my life, my ordinary, normal life, to be interrupted. And my act of faith, my declaration will be to rest as a statement that I trust God to provide for me. And so we're told to remember the Sabbath in the Old Testament. The Israelites were told that the Sabbath belongs to the Lord. They were told to observe the Sabbath. In Isaiah, they're told to call the Sabbath a delight. And somehow this act of Sabbath is a kind of weekly rehearsal of a bigger story. Each time that the Israelites rehearsed the Sabbath, practiced the Sabbath, what they were doing is they were declaring God redeemed us from slavery. And God is taking us to our promised land, our place of rest. And so we're recognizing that there is a rest that is to come. And all of creation today is groaning, is crying out for something which has not yet come in its fullness. It's a place of rest. It's a place of God dwelling with humanity. It's a place of God and humanity ruling together. And that's what we do when we Sabbath. When we Shabbat, we declare this. It's totally countercultural, I realise. It's counterintuitive. It's a declaration, I'm limited. I'm a human. I am not God. I cannot control the future. I cannot solve all my problems. I can't supply it all, so I'm not even going to pretend I can. In fact, I'm going to deliberately stop as an act of humility. And I'm going to say, today I'm going to gratefully enjoy what I've been given. And I'm going to enjoy the source from which it comes. And I'm not going to pretend that I can do it all. So I've been thinking a lot about this over the last year. And one of our favourite habits, the rhythm that we've got into, is that each Friday night we meet with the same group of friends, a family and another single woman. And we gather together from 3 households in one home. And we have a Sabbath meal, and we kind of bring the week to a close. And then we deliberately try to disconnect as much as we can over the next 24 hours from everything that's happening. And I've been learning, even as I do that, the act of disconnecting from a crisis that I'm going in, the act from disconnecting from my email, the act of disconnecting from work and saying, today I'm resting. It's counterintuitive, it's countercultural. But it's stating this crisis is going to go on. I can't bring this crisis to a close. And so I'm going to somehow trust that God is going to do it. It's stating, my finances are never going to be what I want them to be, and I can't make it that way. And so I'm going to rest and I'm going to trust God. So it's really interesting today, on this day, my 50th birthday, as I look back at the past and I look forward to the future, and I think where we're at right now in the world, we are in a fascinating time. Our economies are grinding to a halt. What's the future going to look like for us? And in this moment, this enforced Sabbath, I guess my greatest prayer for all of us is that somehow in this place, God humbles us. God brings us to a place of humble recognition. I can't do this on my own. I need God. I need his presence with me. I need to rehearse this story. We're living for a kingdom that is to come. And that we would have a humility in the way we interact with each other in our common humanity, to love our neighbours and to rest with each other. So, when we look back, we will see clearly. But as we look forward, we see a lot of clouds right now. We haven't been this way before. We desperately need to come to a place of rest in God's presence, trusting, declaring, I can't do this on my own, but God is going to lead us and guide us.